In the northeast of Germany lies the Mecklenburg Lake District, home of the Müritz, Germany's largest lake. This unspoiled mosaic of water and woods is a paradise for nature lovers. With a fascinating world of wildlife, both under the water and above it. The majestic osprey is the heraldic bird of the region. Almost 2,000 lakes and ancient forests cover the Müritz National Park and surrounding area, providing a home for numerous rare species, thanks also to the many people who help them. Winter in Mecklenburg-Vorpommern, in northeast Germany. The lakes of the Müritz National Park are covered in a layer of ice. A guest has arrived from southern Europe, the great egret at work. The ice is paper thin, but that doesn't help. He has to get to the open water in order to hunt. His dagger-like beak is a deadly weapon, but only if his prey isn't too fast for him. This time it worked, even if it was only a small fish. The big ones bring Eurasian otters onto land. His advantage is the ability to dive for fish. The great egret hangs around. Maybe the otter will leave a few leftovers. A grueling waiting game begins. Even in the depth of winter, there are still a few open points on the lakes. Still, bad times for white-tailed sea eagles, who struggle to find prey right now. A few fish have been frozen by the edge of a pond. The natural refrigerator has quickly turned into a big attraction. Especially the young eagles come here to feed. They're recognizable by their dark, dappled plumage and dark beaks. They still appear clumsy and inquisitive. What on earth are these big slabs? Can you eat them? Or at least play with them? It doesn't seem to be entirely clear to the eagles. Much more interesting, however, is what is lurking under the ice. The frozen goods attract eagles from kilometers around. The harsher the winter, the more there are of these imposing birds of prey who gather. Fish are defended with threatening gestures. Only aerial attacks have any chance of success. Everyone tries their luck amidst the general chaos. Only the experienced older bird hangs back and waits for the right moment. Which comes when someone tries to protect their booty from the hungry mob. One attempt is enough for the old eagle. And the youngsters? They've learned another valuable lesson. A spring morning at the Varennes. In the national park on the eastern shores of the Müritz, a deceptive silence reigns. The rich fishing grounds of the lake landscape attract hungry predators. Like the otter, who is once again on the hunt. He needs about a kilo of food every day. He'll eat anything that he finds underwater. Mostly fish, but also crayfish and amphibians. Otters are deft swimmers and prey mainly on small, weak fish, which are devoured on the spot. But he's not quite full yet. Fish are often lurking in the shallow areas by the banks, the perfect hunting grounds. Gotcha. This time the prey is taken onto shore. That way it can't slip away again. Otters are among the rarest mammals in Europe and are strictly protected. They live all over the Müritz region, but are hardly ever seen, existing in ghostly secrecy. So the only thing the national park biologists have to go on are the tracks the otters leave behind on land. Clear water and natural riverbanks are what make the almost 2,000 lakes of the region so unique. In 1990, the Müritz National Park was established. 322 square kilometers of nature now lie under rigorous preservation. The park consists of the Mecklenburg Lake District and parts of the Feldberg Lake District, forming a paradise where nature is left to itself. Cranes migrating north like to head for the eastern shores of the Müritz. Several thousand of them. More and more stay to breed in the moors and forests. They need a lot of peace and quiet. Although in spring, they make quite a racket themselves. This couple have found a spot and is ready for courtship. Mating occurs at the climax of this noisy spectacle. The word crane comes from the Old High German kranu, meaning something like rough caller. And the calls will continue for a few days more before silence reigns once again at the lake and the big birds get down to brooding. By now, more than 3,800 couples brood in Mecklenburg-Vorpommern. That's almost half of the entire brooding crane population of Germany. Ancient beech forests also make the Müritz region exceptional. The Saran forest area has now even been protected as a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Fred Bohlmann is out and about in the forests by the Brückentensee. He grew up in the Müritz region and knows the lake landscape like the back of his hand. Again and again, this nature fan and former park ranger heads off to observe rare animals. This time, he's out to repair an osprey's eyrie. To do this, he has to climb 25 meters up an old pine tree. In recent years, the migratory birds have brooded here, but a winter storm has damaged their nest. It must be built in early spring, before the ospreys return from Africa. Not an easy job, but Fred Bohlmann gets on with it on behalf of his favorite bird of prey. He wants to help maintain the osprey population here in the Müritz region.
This is my home. I think that's why I do this. I don't do it because I have to, but out of conviction. And it's fun. Everyone should contribute something, and I enjoy climbing and building nests like that. Once the birds move in, so to speak, I only have to collect the rent. But of course I don't. This is all the payment I need, and I get a lot out of it.
Fred Bohlmann has to wait another month before his ospreys return again from the south. On a calm April morning, the waiting is over. The ospreys have arrived. The lady is already waiting at the eyrie, while the man brings a bridal gift. That certainly comes before any building materials. She seems to be impressed. And now the preparation of the nest for the upcoming season can begin. Spring cleaning. Nesting material from the previous year has to go. The new branches and tufts of grass are arranged so that a deep hollow is formed. This will shield the female and her eggs from rainfall and strong winds in the coming weeks. Meanwhile, the male makes it clear that this territory is occupied. The ospreys, otherwise extremely rare, are so widespread in the Müritz region that there have even been disputes between couples over desirable nesting places. At times, the osprey has been close to extinction. Thanks to intensive conservation efforts, however, there are now once again more than 190 couples breeding in Mecklenburg-Vorpommern, and they're on the increase. The forests of the Müritz are still bare, but the ground between the centuries-old beech trees is starting to flourish. some early bloomers, liverleaf, and windflowers. In the beech forests between Waren and Feldberg, vast floral carpets form within a few days. The first warmer days and nights coax amphibians from their winter rest. Common newts set off under the cover of darkness to their spawning grounds. The male is still inconspicuous until he reaches his pool. In a few days, in the water where his life began, the male starts to transform in front of the unremarkable female. He's dressed to impress in his special newt suit. All spruced up, the male positions himself next to his prospective partner, showing off his best side and fanning the female with attractants. It doesn't succeed right away, but the little fellow is persistent and finally convinces his partner with a love bite. In the middle of the national park, a few kilometers south of Waren, is the Muritzhof. Four-legged nature conservationists care for the landscape. Trespassing on this protected natural environment is a special privilege of these Gotland sheep. The sheep are custodians of an old tradition. 150 years ago, farmers from Waren drove their livestock to the eastern shores of the Müritz, helping to create a unique grazing landscape with juniper meadows and rare orchids. Sheep, both great and small, eat their fill. The lush grass is devoured, while the prickly juniper remains. These robust sheep live outdoors the whole year round, and it's here that they also give birth. Early spring is lambing season. 90 mothers bring their lambs into the world at the same time. Around 200 animals make up the herd, exactly the right number to maintain sustainable pastoral farming. For the lambs, only 3 things are important: mother's milk, exploring, and enough sleep. Nearby the Muritzhof lie the Wienpeach Lakes. They provide the stage for an extraordinary spectacle. The first spring sunshine has brought them out to hunt for a wife. Grass snakes. From every corner, the males swim out in the search for a potential partner. First of all, they gather on the dry bank sides to warm up. Using their tongues, these harmless snakes can detect where the females are hiding. At times, there's more than one suitor embracing his special someone. Once the sun has warmed the cold-blooded creatures up to operating temperature, the mating can begin. The males get the ladies in the mood by rhythmically flicking their skin. A little game that can last for hours. Close nearby, some offspring of the European toads have hatched. The tadpoles feed on algae and plants growing by the shore. They have, however, long since caught the attention of a skillful hunter. On the ground lurk some blue hawker dragonfly nymphs. They go after the tadpoles using a weapon unique in the animal kingdom. They have an extensible lower lip that works like a spear gun. It shoots out in just 0.02 of a second. It can only be witnessed in slow motion. After 2 to 3 years in the water, the dragonfly larvae climb onto land where they undergo a wondrous transformation. They now change into adults which are able to fly, a process which can take 5 hours. The insect pumps air into its body in order to literally climb out of its skin. This is the most dangerous moment of his life. He's now completely helpless and vulnerable. At first, the wings are folded and have to be pumped up. They're still milky and soft like the entire body. Since the adult body resembles that of the larvae, the transformation is considered to be incomplete, in contrast to butterflies. The pale body takes on the typical blue hawker markings. Now the dragonfly just has to harden up a bit in the sun, and its second life can begin, as a flying insect on the lookout for a partner. Spring also transforms the forests of the Müritz National Park. One area in particular stands out in the Feldberg Lake District. The Heilige Hallen, the Holy Halls. This protected area is the oldest beech forest in Germany. Some of these giants are up to 350 years old. And there where the forest meets the lake, the male osprey goes hunting. With spectacular nosedives, the osprey plucks fish after fish from the water, bringing them directly to the nest. After 6 weeks of brooding, the osprey couple's chicks have hatched. The father's hunting instinct is so strong that he can hardly be separated from his quarry. The mother really has to wrench the fish away from him. She feeds them tiny pieces, as the chicks are only 3, 4, and 5 days old. Dad is only tolerated in the nest right now as the food delivery service. Keeping tiny osprey chicks warm is no easy matter when your own feet are razor-sharp weapons. She has to crawl over the little ones with her talons retracted in order not to injure them. For a good 2 weeks, the mother will constantly keep the offspring warm, only pausing to feed them. Nestled in the lake landscape of the national park lies Neustrelitz. The former residence of the Dukes of Mecklenburg still has a lot to remind visitors of its previous splendor. Like the palace gardens, with their orangerie and the palace church. But right from the edge of Neustrelitz, nature is back in charge. Some parts almost resemble the Amazon. Terrier Benny and Fred Bowman are out along the Küstriner Bach, an insider tip for anyone looking for solitude in the Feldberg Lake District. This is all Fred needs for true contentment.
I don't really have a big desire to travel. Of course I want to see a few things, but there are so many beautiful spots here. I guess I've just fallen in love with my home.
Love has also struck right here among the otters. The male has the scent of a female in his nose. Normally, otters are lonesome creatures. They only get over their shyness during breeding season. Mating is preceded by play fights and long chases. This is how to flirt, otter style. When the female is won over by her partner, they head to the land to mate, where they can have a little privacy. The Müritz region is also home to the Eurasian kingfisher. He's not exactly a giant, but is, thanks to his bright feathers, one of the most beautiful native birds. The male attracts his mate with a nest in a steep face. Then nothing can get in the way of the kingfisher's family planning. At lower levels, everything also revolves around the young generation, like here, in the crystal clear water of the Schmalen-Luzin Lake. This is home to a fish with some eccentric habits, the three-spined stickleback. During spawning season, the male changes color in an attempt to impress the ladies. On the lakebed, between plant particles and algae, he builds a nest. Some interested females observe the construction work. But only one lays her eggs in the well-camouflaged tube. After laying the eggs, the female has done her bit, and the male takes over. He slithers into the tube and fertilizes the eggs. For the next 1 or 2 weeks, the father will keep watch over the nest and his offspring. But the sticklebacks have to deal with an airborne menace. They're the favorite prey of the kingfisher. He plunges into the water like an arrow. Not every attempt is successful, however. While the female kingfisher waits impatiently for a fish, the offspring have hatched in the breeding burrow. 1 meter underground, at the end of the tube, lies the birth chamber. The little ones are just a day old, and right now need constant warming. Outside, the father is on the hunt for food. The youngsters need the smallest fish possible. In order to avoid the danger of prickles and scales catching in the chicks' throats, the kingfisher carries the prey head first into the hollow. They're still blind and snap at the food instinctively. The fish is swallowed in one piece, as kingfishers can't break up their catches. For the parents, this is just the start of 4 long, hard weeks until their chicks are fully fledged. In the fenwood, the cranes are already a lot further on. But the long-legged birds only appear at their old breeding grounds in the afternoons. Their chicks hatched 7 weeks ago and now spend their whole day in the forest with the older ones in the search for food. The youngsters are already quite a size and look almost like their parents. These 2 siblings now only head to the old nest for rest and sleep. Vigilance is still the watchword for the older birds, as it will be another 3 weeks before the young cranes can fly. Only then will the family leave the safety of this breeding place and join other cranes at the gathering areas around the Müritz region. A peaceful idyll, only a few hundred meters away from the hustle and bustle of Lake Müritz. In summer, the largest lake exclusive to Germany is a favorite holiday spot. Several 100,000 visitors flock here every year. Most of them take boat tours on the lake. The tourist center of Waren lies on the northern shore. Waren's harbour promenade is buzzing with life. It's here that most tourists start out their trips on the Müritz. Right after the city limits, however, the hurly-burly ends and the national park begins. May lilies offer bright spots in the darkness of the beech forest. The plants disseminate under the ground and so always grow in clusters. And it's not only native plants and animals which enjoy the protection of the national park. Raccoons also live in the woods here. Invaders from America who didn't originate in the region at all. The vast forests of the lake landscape have lots of dead trees. Perfect conditions for these little mammals. Hollow trees, ideal for offspring, can be found everywhere. Raccoons are skilled climbers, which can become a nuisance, as they're able to raid the nests and dens of endangered animals. In their first few weeks, youngsters learn all about the area around their home hollow. Everything is explored. After all, it could be edible. Raccoons feel for their prey under the water. Like all young animals, the little raccoons are very playful. This is how they learn to stand up for themselves in their future lives as adults and develop their hunting skills. Raccoons are also highly intelligent and adaptable. Their population has expanded all over Germany. These furry little predators are here to stay, whether the sensitive wildlife of the region likes it or not. Summer in the Müritz National Park. The ospreys still have lots to keep them busy. Several times a day, the father provides fish for the chicks. While Mum, as before, takes care of the feeding. The offspring are now 3 weeks old, but they still can't break up the food themselves. So far, breeding season has gone without a hitch for parents and chicks. But today, danger is lurking from above. An unfamiliar osprey male is soaring over the nest. The parents are highly agitated. Every bird of prey which appears poses a threat to the little ones. Finally, the interloper is put off by the screeches and threatening gestures of the osprey couple and turns around. On the eastern shores of the Müritz, the work of the Gotland sheep is paying off. Large numbers of common March orchids are on display in the meadows in their full glory. These rare flowers only blossom when the grasses are kept short by the sheep's grazing. On hot days, red deer come to one of the lakes to cool off. And there's an added bonus to the cold bath. The annoying flies disappear, at least for a few seconds. Red deer were previously reared and cultivated individually for recreational hunting. Today, their population is regulated only by the national park authorities. High summer in the Feldberg Lake District. At almost 200 square kilometers, it's the largest county in Mecklenburg-Vorpommern, and certainly one of the most diverse. Tailor-made for the red kite, the raptor searches for food from above the numerous lakes. By Schmaler-Luzin in Feldberg, Fred Bowman helps the red kites find provisions. His own personal kite knows the routine well when Fred comes along like every evening in his boat. Now for some fresh fish.
I find these birds fascinating. Their hunting methods, their behavior, how they look. I'm a big fan.
Nevertheless, the red kites are struggling. Their population is in decline. Biologists suspect that intensive agriculture is making life tough for the birds. Ospreys, relatives of the red kite, have it easier. In the fish ponds of Burg, the only settlement on the eastern shore of the Müritz, they can hunt undisturbed. Back at the nest, the fish are already longingly awaited. The 3 chicks are now 8 weeks old and are constantly hungry. Although they can now fly, they're still being fed, as they still have to learn how to hunt like their parents. The young ospreys won't be able to enjoy being fed for much longer. Soon, they'll have to learn how to fend for themselves in order to survive the long journey to their winter territories in Africa. In October, they head off to the south. Then, autumn arrives in the forest of the Müritz. A melancholic air comes over the Mecklenburg Lake District. The landscape, with its countless lakes and ponds, was formed in the last ice age. Erratic boulders, found in many places, remind us of these age-old origins. The stones were used as building material, like at the ruined castle of Grubenhagen. This landscape is studded with stone, like here at Burg Schlitz with its magnificent park. And there are other testaments to history. Not all of them as ancient as the Ice Age remains, but still several centuries old, like this common oak at Kuckelmiss. In autumn, the old familiar strains can be heard once again on the Müritz. Cranes are gathering in their thousands on their journey from Scandinavia. One of the largest crane resting and sleeping zones of inland Mecklenburg-Vorpommern is at the Rederengsee. In the evenings, the birds gather in the shallow water of the pond to sleep. Here, the youngsters especially are safe from foxes and wild boar. Only when the next day is dawning do the cranes fly off again to feed in the surrounding cornfields. When they've built up enough fat reserves, they head off towards the Mediterranean and their wintering quarters, heralding the beginning of the season on the Müritz. Snow and weeks of cold temperatures arrive in the region. For the birds of prey, this is a tough time. Fred Bowman is helping his favorite animals now more than ever. He brings the carcass of a run-over roe deer to the birds of prey. After all, they're an important part of home for him.
I think it's even a figurehead for the Feldberg Lake District. It really is something special.
The common buzzards are the hungriest and come first to the feeding grounds. These raptors are a sign that the wildlife of the Mecklenburg Lake District and the Müritz is intact in many places. But Fred Bowman also looks into the future of the region with concern.
Wild habitats have to be created. They're being damaged here. On the one hand, it's intensive agriculture, which is impacting on the habitats of many species, and on the other, of course, intensive forestry. So I also want to do my bit in order to maybe prevent some of the effects. I have lots of plans. The key thing is to actually do something, to put it into action.
Man muss es bloß tun und umsetzen.